What's going on, YouTube? OCD for EDC here, and what I got for your face balls today is a video about stropping. We've got multiple different strops here and different things that we're going to talk about. But before we jump into that, a few announcements, if you will. I've been trying to learn more about YouTube and whatnot. I've been doing this a little less than a year. I really appreciate all the support and everything from all the viewers. But I would ask you to hit the subscribe button, put your thumbs on it, either way, whichever way floats your boat, because I'm getting fairly close to 2,000 subscribers, and I've got a giveaway that's coming up. We kind of blew past 1,500, which thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But like I said, I have it's over 70% of people that are watching my videos are not subscribed. But when we hit 2,000 subscribers, I am going to give away a few knives that I customized, doing different anodizing work and things like that. So we'll show those off when we get a little closer to that, but I just wanted to put it out there. So if you guys would like, hit the subscribe button and, like I said, put your thumbs on it. All right, we're going to talk about multiple different blade shapes and blade designs as it applies to stropping, because it takes different techniques, different methods, all sorts of different things going on, and we're going to talk about do's and don'ts and kind of what the overall goal is with stropping and how it can benefit you and kind of reduce your sharpening time and all that sort of thing. So let's get into that. First off, we're going to talk a little bit about blade geometry. So I am not an artist, but I am going to draw a couple pictures here just to try and put this, with some illustration, I guess. I'm going to use the old pocket pen here. I carry one of these every single day. This one here was given to me by my good buddy BJ Hill over at Hilltop Knives and Gear. So if you guys haven't checked out his channel, go over there and do that. I'll put a link in the description for his channel as well. He's got some cool stuff. But just for simplifying the drawing and whatnot, we're just going to talk about a flat ground primary bevel, or primary edge. So I'm going to draw it real big here, so hopefully it'll show up good. But this here would be a representation of a flat ground blade, something similar to this Blade HQ exclusive Spyderco Manix XL. So I don't know how well that's going to show up, but basically this is a representation of this blade from the spine down to the cutting edge and the primary grind. And then the secondary bevel would be your sharpening angle, and that's going to be right down here and something that looks like this. So this is kind of what your knife edge looks like. Like I said, I'm not an artist, so don't hold that against me. But your main goal here on the with stropping is focused right here on this piece, or the tip there between these two secondary bevel edges, and this is the apex. So when you're sharpening a knife, you're removing material from this edge and from this edge, and as you're doing that, I'm going to draw another little picture over here. So if this is your two sharpening bevels right here, as you're removing material and you're, grinding away at this side here, as you're doing that, you form a burr, and a little piece of metal will actually hang over this edge. Now, in some cases, you can see it. You can generally always feel it when, rubbing your finger across the edge. You can feel if there's a burr on there on either side. But sometimes it can be very difficult to remove that burr depending on the composition of the blade steel, and the heat treat can make the burr harder or easier to remove. But essentially what you're doing when you apex a knife is you're grinding away at this side in order to create the finest apex that you can, and grinding away at this side, and you will eventually have an apex there, and then you have this burr that you're just kind of folding back and forth, and you need to be able to remove that burr and refine that apex. And so that's where stropping comes into play. So for those that don't know, I guess if you have a dull knife, what it will look like is you'll have your two bevels that you're sharpening on, and then instead of having a nice clean crisp apex, you'll have a worn edge, which will be something like that. So in order to apex this knife, you'll need to remove this material back to where these two lines intersect at a crisp, clean point again. So that's really the goal here, or what you're trying to do, is remove that material to expose a very, very sharp apex. Now, in my videos, I talk a lot about thickness behind the edge, and that is this measurement right here. So depending on, a lot of times you'll see something like 25 thousandths. And that's this measurement right here. That's kind of similar to, a lot of Spydercos are in that 25 to 28 thousandths behind the edge. And that's what I'm measuring right there, is behind at the top of your sharpening angle, that thickness of the blade material. Now, of course, as you sharpen and you go up this flat ground blade, the further you go up, the thicker it's going to get behind the edge. And this is where a hollow ground blade comes into play, because of the convex nature of a hollow grind. You can go further up the blade without increasing the thickness behind the edge. Something like a Chris Reeves knife, they do a really good job with their hollow grinds on the Sebenza and whatnot. So anyway, but for this video, we're talking about stropping, and we're only caring about this very point right here on the apex. And so stropping essentially is nothing more than just finer grit sharpening, really. You sharpen at a specific angle. Most knives are coming from the factory somewhere between 15 and 20 thousandths with this secondary edge bevel. And you can reprofile a knife to have it be at 15 degrees per side if you would like, or whatever edge bevel that you want. But most EDC knives are somewhere in that range of 15 to 20 degrees. So by changing that secondary edge bevel, you're not changing the thickness behind the edge. You're just changing the relationship between the two sides. Now, of course, this only applies to V ground knives. You could have a chisel grind, which is going to look like, in the case of an Emerson, you have your flat ground blade coming down like this, and then your one side goes straight, and then you have this just a single-sided edge bevel. These are done for multiple different reasons, and they have different cutting characteristics when you have a chisel ground or a V ground or a convex edge, or a zero ground knife. There's lots of different types of edge bevels out there. Even with any of these, stropping is a good thing to do. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Hopefully that wasn't too convoluted and you understand where I'm coming from here. And so the goal with stropping is to refine that apex, and you're doing that by loading some type of a compound or abrasive material onto a softer material. In a lot of cases it's leather, but it doesn't have to be leather. You can do things like balsa wood, which we're going to talk about this and why it may be preferred in some cases. But you can do, you can have leather like this that is very kind of dense and is not textured leather. So this strop right here is a good representation of this. On one side of this, you have a very soft kind of I don't know the term that they use for this, but like textured leather, where it's a rough surface on the leather. And then you have this side here, which is very, very smooth and untextured. I know there's a term for it, and I can't think of what the hell it is. But anyway, you see the difference of what I'm talking about here on the different types of leather. And they both serve different purposes. So this here, this strop is from sharpeningsupplies.com. You can get a lot of these products from Sharpening Supplies. If you don't know or not familiar with them, go check out their website. Great people over there. They can help you out with a whole bunch of different sharpening accoutrements. But I use multiple different strop scenarios for different applications. And so I have this strop, which I use a lot, the one I just showed. This is a double-sided paddle strop, and I have the fine, micro-fine honing compound, this green compound on this side, and then on this side, I've got just a really, really fine diamond. I just had some left over, and so I kind of rubbed it on there. But a lot of times I just use the bare leather on this side. And then I have this strop right here. This one came from a place called Chef Knives to Go. This is just a metal plate, just mild steel plate with some feet on it. And then you have different strops that have a magnet backer to them, and they just stick down on here. And that's what this balsa wood is for as well. And then I've got strop like this, which is just a little smaller, and this also has kind of that textured leather with some green compound. And then I also have this strop right here. This is a new strop that I just recently got, and I don't know if you're going to be able to tell or not. It's kind of hard to tell, but this has diamond compound on it, 1 micron, and this is the diamond compound right here. This is from Genda. And this stuff here is 160,000 grit or 0.1 micron. So this certainly has got a lot of diamond abrasive in it. It's like a diamond emulsion. And then you can get stuff like this right here, which is like a diamond paste. And you can get these in all sorts of different grits. And yeah, there's countless options out there. So it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're looking for a good strop on what to go with and what's going to work best for you. But I would recommend any stropping is better than no stropping. So, but you don't have to go out and buy, these fancy things. You can use a paint stirring stick like this balsa wood right here. The advantage to doing something like this is just having a larger surface to work on. But there are some advantages to using wood instead of leather, and we're going to get into that. So first off, one of the things that I want to say here is that one of the things that all these strops have in common, with the exception of the wood, all of these strops are soft and they have a bit of give to the material. And so when you are pushing down on this strop with your knife edge, you're going to come in here and you are going to find your edge, your sharpening angle, and then you're going to move backwards away from the cutting edge. You don't ever want to push forward because you'll cut into your strop, but you're going to move back away from the cutting edge at that angle. I personally like to strop a couple of degrees steeper than the angle that I sharpened at, but that also depends on the type of strop that I'm using. So once you find the angle that you want to strop at, you're going to move the knife away from the cutting edge like this, and pressure plays a huge role in this on how well the strop is going to perform. So if you push down too hard on your strop material, what's going to happen there is your strop material, and I'm going to try to show this off with my skin if I can. So if I use the back of my knife here and I push down, you can see how my skin kind of rolls around the edge, the spine of the knife here, like this. Well, that's what's happening with your strop and the cutting edge of your blade. And so I'm gonna move some stickers out of the way here. But so if you push down too hard, what you're actually going to do is, instead of having that nice, clean, straight apex, you're actually going to roll it over. And by rolling it over, you're just dulling the knife. So I think that there's a lot of people out there. I've had, I've brought up stropping a few times in some other videos. I've had several people say, well, I don't really understand how it works, because every time I try and strop, my knife's duller than when I started. And generally speaking, I mean, I'm not there, so I don't know exactly what you're doing, but generally speaking, you're probably pushing down too hard with the knife. So you want to use very light pressure, and you can feel the edge as it's running across the strop. You can feel whether or not it has a burr on it, or you'll have stuff like this right here. I mean, I was just ran that across a few times. If you can see right in that area, it's kind of hard to see, but then I bumped the camera. You can see that compound right there on the edge. So there's a little bit of a burr there that's kind of grabbing and scratching that compound off of the strop. Let me try and fix that. All right. And so we do have a little bit of burr left right there, and you can feel that. Now, there's different ways to remove the burr. You can take your knife and go on the edge of something like this and literally like kind of cut down to try to remove the burr. You can also use things like, I have one right over here, just a second. So I thought I was prepared and I wasn't. You can use things like this little felt block right here, and you can take your blade and put it on this felt block and pull the edge across there, and this can snag that burr and take it off the edge. So there's lots of different ways to remove a burr, but stropping is a really, really great way to do that. So once you find the angle that you want to strop at, so depending on what your secondary bevel edge is, you're going to want to hold the knife at that angle or just a little bit steeper. So if you're sharpening at, say, 15 degrees per side, you may want to strop at about 17 degrees per side, but do that with very, very light pressure. And so you're going to run across and remove the burr, as well as with very, very high grit levels, like in that other strop, it's 160,000 grit. You're just refining and removing such a tiny amount of material that you're just refining that apex. With every single pass, you're just making it more and more smaller and smaller apex. So if you change your angle, you can wreck that apex pretty easily, because technically you are sharpening the knife, or you're abrading the material. Here you're just doing it on a really kind of microscopic level. So as you're stropping, be aware of how it feels on the strop, and if you get your angle too high, you can feel that. It's kind of hard to explain, and really just practice is what's going to help you out the most. But like I said, stropping at just a 1 or 2 degree steeper of an angle than what you sharpen at, I always find that works the best for me. So we can, I just hit it on that strop just a couple of times here, and let's see, we need to get a baseline here started somewhere. So, I'll just tear this out in a moment. So with the sharpness tester, we can see how well we're doing with the stropping pretty quickly and easily, and see if we're making improvements or not. Turn this back on here. There we go. Oh, I'm not sure why it's doing that, but all right, so we got a score here of 195. For those that don't know, this is measuring the weight or the pressure that is applied to this cutting or the media, the test media. It's this little black line right there. It's kind of like fishing line, but this is the best certified test media. So 195. We'll come back to this and do a little more stropping and see how much we can improve that. But so when you're using a strop material like leather or any other kind of material that can compress under the pressure that you're putting on, you just want to make sure that you're holding at the correct angle and that you're not pushing too hard. Because if you're pushing too hard, you're gonna roll that edge because of the way that pliable material wraps up around the cutting edge. So that's something to just be aware of and just understand how your strop works and what your end goal is here. You want to hit just that apex, but you don't want to roll it over. You want it to be as sharp as possible. So so that's where things like wood come into play. So with wood, because the wood is much more dense, and it's not going to roll up around your edge like I showed you with my finger here. It's not going to make that roll, or you would have to just be pushing a lot harder just because the material's more dense. But balsa wood or any type of light wood has an open grain structure that will hold the compound, and that's really all you're doing is by utilizing the leather or some type of wood is you're holding the compound in the pores of or that grain structure, and that's what's abrading the edge on your knife. So as you're stropping here, you can see that on this, I haven't cleaned this for a little while, and so you can see there's a lot of steel on the surface of this wood here, and that's because every time I pass over it, it's removing little microscopic portions of that blade steel. Now this particular knife happens to be it's S90V, so this is one that you would want to use a diamond emulsion with on a super steel like this. I mean, you could do it with the honing compound. It's just going to take longer. But so with the wood, because you don't have that rolling action going over around the edge, it's a little bit more forgiving and a little easier to get the hang of at first. Because, like I said, you can wreck an edge on a strop, and you think that you're doing good, and then you go to cut something and you realize that it is not as sharp as when you started, which is always a bummer. So if you're struggling with stropping, I'm gonna set this over here for a second. If you're struggling with stropping, I would recommend trying out some wood, and you might find that works out better for you. And if the wood does work out better for you, then I would say that you're probably applying too much pressure with the leather strop, and that was your issue as to why you were not getting good results. So we'll see here. Didn't spend much time, but we'll just see if we improve this at all. So this was at 195 before, and there you go, 145. So we dropped it about 50 grams on the sharpness tester with just a few passes of stropping, and this is an S90V. So stropping definitely is a positive thing, no doubt. So talking about the balsa wood, like I said, it's definitely, in my opinion, it's a little bit more forgiving and a little bit easier to work with. because if you do, hold your knife a little too steep, chances are you're not going to fully round the edge over, or if you push a little too hard, the wood is not going to wreck your edge as fast as what leather will. So then we come into things like this right here. This is a Nano cloth strop from Genda. This strop here, they come with these different acrylic backs on them. They're color coded just so you can keep your diamond emulsion correct with the strop. So they make this in a whole bunch of different grits, different micron levels, and they all, the diamond emulsion will be the same color as the acrylic on the strop. So it's just a good way to keep things organized. But this Nano cloth here is actually made up of a whole bunch of like honeycomb shaped tubes, if you will, that are standing vertical. And when you first apply the diamond emulsion here, it soaks down into those pores. So you can see the material thickness here. It's pretty thin. However, you can compress it. And as you compress that material, it exposes these little columns, if you will, of diamond abrasive. And so as that diamond abrasive gets exposed, and we're just going to do another Warncliffe here just because I've got it and it's easy to do. As that diamond abrasive gets exposed, that's going to further refine that edge. And with the characteristics of the Nano cloth, should act more like the balsa wood, because hydraulic pressure, when you're pushing down and you're exposing those columns of abrasive, I shouldn't say hydraulic because they are dry at this point, but the cloth compresses and exposes the diamond, and so you're really at that point, just the blade is riding on a fine layer of those diamond particles. And so you shouldn't have that wrapping effect as badly as you do with leather here. Even though the cloth can be compressed somewhat, you do have the structure of the material that's filling those pores that is actually supporting the edge of the knife. And so you shouldn't end up with rolling the edge as badly here as what you can on leather. Now, this strop is new for me. I haven't used it a bunch. I did load it here the other day in a live video, and I haven't really messed with it since then. The reason I didn't load it in this video is I just didn't want it to take forever to dry. But so this Nano cloth, the idea behind it, totally makes sense to me. The mechanics of it, should perform well. It does feel good to strap on, so we'll see what kind of performance we get out of this. This knife here is also an S90V, so I should have picked knives that were a little easier blade steel to strap with, or a little faster, I should say. Let's see here. Bring the Sharpness Tester back out. I need to reload this. So stropping can be a fantastic thing, edge maintenance in between sharpenings. That's generally what I do. When we're watching TV or whatever, you can sit there and strop your edges and keep a really nice a nice good apex on your knife without doing full-on sharpening, which is really great. And you can make your the time between sharpenings last much longer. All right, so we got 165 here on this knife, and we'll go ahead and do a little more, and I'm going to load up another deal here. But so by utilizing a strop, and if you go to it regularly, then you can extend the time period between sharpenings and and still have a really nice, good edge on your knives. So we'll hit this strop a few more times. I should have hit the sharpness tester first there, but so by stropping, you just want to use really, really light pressure. You're not trying to remove a bunch of material. You're just trying to work the very, very edge of the knife. You've already created your secondary bevel. You're just ever so slightly wanting to just clean up that edge and just make it as good as you can possibly get it. Now, you can sit here and do this until you're blue in the face. If you want to whittle hairs and all that sort of thing, this is how you get there. And you don't have to have a sharpness tester like what I have right here. You can test your edge with a whole multitude of different things. But let's see if we've made any improvement here. Like I said, I'm not really sure how well this nano cloth works just because I'm so new to it. All right, I think I was 165 and now it's 145. So we can keep going, but in the interest of time, this video is already too long. So you can see there that stropping definitely improves the edge and is a worthwhile thing to do. It also can help be a nice, easy way to help if you have any interest in doing freehand sharpening. Stropping is a good way to kind of train yourself for that consistent edge holding. So when you're trying to find the right angle to sharpen at, the relationship to the edge and the strop is really important, just like it is with stones. And really, to freehand anything, it just takes time. It just takes time and practice. If that's something you're interested in, great. Like I said, a strop's a really great way to learn how to do freehand sharpening. If you sharpen on a fixed angle system, something like a KME or an Edge Pro or a TS Prov, or there's a whole bunch of them out there, a Viper. Or the Genda is making one now that's really cool. I showed it off in the Omaha knife video that I did. If you're using one of those fixed angle systems, one of the things that I have found, because I have tried out multiples of those fixed angle systems, is increasing the angle when you go to stropping. Because, so if, I'm trying to see if I can get this a representation, but let's just say you're sharpening this knife at a 15-degree angle. So if I'm holding the knife here and your stone's about at this angle right here, and you're sharpening this knife on your fixed angle system, and then you go to the strop and you strop at that exact same angle, you are not really at that point refining the very apex of the knife. In order to do that, you're going to have to increase the angle of your strop just a tiny amount, just a tiny bit. So you change the angle for the strop so it's hitting just the apex of the knife. Now, you don't want to do enough that you roll the apex over. Like I said, we're talking like 1 or 2 degrees here. But on a fixed angle system, and with my sharpness tester, I've tested this a handful of times. And if I go through the progression of stones and I sharpen the knife and I use a leather strop on the KME or any type of fixed angle system, doesn't matter. They're all as long as they hold the angle, that's all that you care about. And you strop at that exact same angle, by increasing the angle of that strop by 1 to 2 degrees, I've seen generally a drop of about 50 or 60 grams on the sharpness tester. So I've done it both ways. I've stropped at the exact same angle in the fixed angle system, and I've stropped at a lower angle, a steeper angle, And like I said, you end up with about a 50 or 60 gram decrease in that edge apex. So it's certainly worth doing, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the fixed angle stuff. I mean, they're fine. I don't have a problem with them. I just, when it comes to stropping, I would just rather do that by hand. So if you want to use the fixed angle system to sharpen and then use a strop by hand, that's totally good with me. And I think that, honestly is kind of maybe the best of both worlds. The fixed angle system, I understand that works really well for a lot of people. And so, that's really fantastic. So, but I would recommend either, stropping by hand, or if you have all the lapping films and all that stuff for a KME, try increasing the angle 1 or 2 degrees when you go to those stropping progressions, and you'll find out that your knife ultimately will be sharper. So anyway, hopefully this video is doing some good. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. I'm gonna use this quite a bit more, and I'll report back to you guys and let you know if it's really any better than this. So like I said, I think the idea is good. How well it works in real world, I'm not really sure. But if you're brand new to stropping, or if you've had issues stropping in the past, I would recommend, going to something like this where you have wood that you can strop on, and, perfect your skills there before going to leather. And like I said, you don't have to buy something fancy like this. You can literally use a paint stick. I've used paint sticks many times. You can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever and just buy a piece of wood. If you want something a little larger like this, obviously you want to make sure that it's flat. But within reason. Paint sticks aren't always flat. A lot of times they have a little bit of a bow to them, but you can still use them to strop on. So you can really use a lot of different things. I've heard of people using cardboard. I personally have never used cardboard to strop on, but really you can use just about anything, especially when you're talking about adding some type of an abrasive to it, whether it's green compound like this, or compounds come in many different colors, or if you're using some type of diamond emulsion like this, where it's pretty liquid like, or a paste like these. Tons of different options out there, and you can find what works best for you. But I think a lot of people, you see so much leather that I feel like a lot of people, that's just what they result to, and or always come back to, and think that that's mandatory. It really isn't. So if you find that the leather's not working out for you very well, try some wood. So anyway, that's what she said. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you guys try on your fixed angle systems to increase the stropping angle and how well it worked out for you. And if you have any questions about stropping, hit me up, or sharpening in general, whatever. I don't claim to be the very best ever, but I can certainly make a knife sharp. And that's all that matters, right? We're here to have a good time and deal with some sharp stuff. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot. Oh, we never even got to the Manix XL. I'll bring it back out just to show it. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we will catch you next time.